Hey everyone, I'm really glad you're here. You don't need to do anything right now. There's no need to stay fully awake, and no pressure to keep track of anything. This is just a soft journey, one that you can drift in and out of as gently as you like. You might already be in bed, or maybe just settling into a quiet place. However you're listening, just know that you're welcome here. We're going to spend some peaceful time together, slipping slowly into the past. Nothing loud, nothing fast, just calm, steady footsteps through another time. Tonight, we're going to visit ancient Rome. Not the Rome of emperors or chariots or grand statues, but the quieter Rome, the softer one, the one behind the stone walls, above the little shops, inside the tall, worn buildings where most of the people lived. These buildings were called insulae, stacked homes built close together, where neighbors lived right on top of one another, where the walls were thin, the floors creaked, and daily life moved gently from one moment to the next. It's still early, so early that the sky hasn't even started to lighten. Everything is hushed. The streets are empty. The oil lamps outside have burned down to stubs. The only sounds are the soft creaks of old wood, the occasional distant footstep echoing through the alley, and the quiet rhythm of people turning in their sleep. In one of the upper rooms, not far from a small bakery that hasn't yet opened, a woman lies awake beneath a rough blanket. She's not moving yet, just listening. She can hear the gentle breathing of her children next to her. One is curled up tightly, the other half turned on his back, arm flung loosely across the blanket. Their little bodies are still warm from sleep, their faces peaceful. She doesn't want to wake them. Not yet. But the fire has long since gone out, and the chill in the room is creeping in through the stone walls. She carefully lifts one corner of the blanket and sets her feet down on the cold floor. The clay tiles are cracked and uneven. They feel cool and a little damp. She wraps a thin shawl around her shoulders and crosses the room, her steps slow and practiced. The room is small, not much more than 4 steps across, and its walls are bare, except for a hanging strip of faded cloth, a shelf with a few clay dishes, and a basket of old clothes in the corner. Near the brazier, where the coals still hold a faint heat, she crouches and pushes a few small sticks onto the embers. She blows gently, once, twice, a third time. Slowly, the tiny flame catches, and a flicker of orange light begins to glow across the room. It's not much, but enough to see. She fills a clay bowl with a little water from a jug, then dips her fingers in and presses them to her face. The water is cold. She exhales softly. Behind her, one of the children rolls over and mumbles something, but he doesn't wake. She smiles to herself and places the bowl beside the brazier. Somewhere above her, a floorboard creaks. Someone else is up. Probably the old man who lives alone on the top level. He walks with a cane, always pacing in the early hours. The sound of him moving is part of the rhythm of this building, just like the dripping of a pipe outside or the neighbor's baby who cries softly each morning before dawn. Downstairs, a heavier sound echoes up, a bolt sliding open, the thunk of wood against stone. Maybe the baker has started his oven. She can almost smell it already. The sharp scent of burning wood, the heat of the coals starting to rise through the building. That oven has fed half the street for years. Every morning, the same pattern. The heat, the flour, the slow line of people waiting for bread. She returns to the shelf and measures a small handful of grain mash into a pot. It's from yesterday's batch, still good. She adds a little water and places it above the fire. The flames are slow, lazy. There's no rush. Nothing in this building moves fast, especially not in the morning. A knock sounds at the door. Not loud, just 2 soft taps. It's not someone visiting, it's a signal. A neighbor, probably the girl. From 2 rooms down, asking for fire. These knocks are part of life here. 1 for fire, 2 for water. A certain rhythm for when the baker's loaves are ready. Everyone knows them. No one needs to speak. She opens the door just a crack. The hallway is dark and narrow. The girl stands there holding a clay pot, her face still sleepy. The woman nods and steps aside and letting her in. They sit beside the brazier together. No words, just the quiet comfort of familiar company. After a few minutes, the girl nods, lifts her warmed pot, and slips back out the door. The children are waking now. The older one stretches, rubbing his eyes. The younger pulls the blanket over his head with a soft groan. Their mother smiles and gently nudges him until he peeks out. She pours the warm mash into 2 small bowls and hands them over. They eat slowly, quietly, sitting near the fire. Outside, the sky is beginning to change, just a little. The blackness is turning gray around the edges. A breeze moves through the narrow alley, carrying the scent of smoke, bread, and stone. Somewhere, a rooster calls out and a dog answers. A cart rolls slowly over the cobbles in the distance. Inside the Insula, the rhythm is picking up, but only slightly. A baby cries on the floor below. Footsteps descend a staircase. Water is poured into a basin. A wooden spoon clinks against a bowl. The building is waking, but it's not loud. It hums rather than shouts. In another room, a woman wraps cloth around her arms and prepares to carry laundry to the public fountain. She folds each piece carefully, placing them in a wide basket, balancing it against her hip as she opens her door. Her husband passes her in the corridor, nodding, half asleep, his hands already blackened from soot, as he heads down to tend the fires in the workshop. This is how mornings work here. Small, quiet motions, simple tasks, a kind of dance between light and shadow, warmth and cold. The walls are thin and the floors shift with every step, but the people know the rhythms. They've lived with them all their lives. On the other side of the alley, a man leans out of a window and empties a bucket into the drain below. The water splashes, then runs quietly down the stone channel. He mutters something to himself, wipes his hands on his tunic, and pulls the shutters closed again. A girl sits cross-legged on the floor near her grandmother, threading beads onto a bit of string. The grandmother is sewing, her hands moving slowly and steadily. She hums under her breath, not a tune anyone would recognize, just a sound she's always made. The needle pulls through fabric, the thread loops and tightens, again and again. There's something comforting in all of it. The repetition, the way every person moves through the same steps, every morning in their own way. Light the fire, warm the water, feed the children, sweep the floor, listen for the bakery knock, check the oil lamp, layer the clothes, step into the day. But the day itself hasn't really begun yet. Not fully. The city's only halfway awake. The sun still hasn't touched the rooftops. There's just a faint glow behind the clouds now, enough to outline the shapes of chimneys, of wooden beams, of shutters left open just a crack. The mother gathers the empty bowls, wipes them with a scrap of cloth, and stacks them neatly on the shelf. Her sons are playing now, not loudly, just quietly shifting pebbles on the floor, making up stories in whispers. She lets them be. There will be time later for chores, for errands, for all the things that wait. For now, there's still calm, and in the walls of the Insula you can feel that calm, a kind of pause between night and day, between sleep and motion, a breath being held, a candle not quite burned out. The hush before the chatter begins lingers a while longer. The city is always slower to rise than it seems. People imagine Rome as loud and busy, and it is, but not yet. Not at this hour. In the Insula, life still moves gently, brushing lightly against the walls, stepping carefully across old floors, keeping voices low so the last sleepers can stay inside their dreams just a little longer. The mother stirs the fire again, nudging a larger piece of wood into the flames now that the day has begun to move. The glow rises a little higher, and the warmth starts to touch the corners of the room. She doesn't open the shutters all the way. Just a little crack, enough to let the new light filter through in pale streaks, without letting in the full chill of the outside air. Down the hallway, someone sneezes. A door creaks open. A quiet laugh follows, then fades just as quickly. On mornings like this, sounds travel far and soft and like floating threads, tying each room to the next. The boy closest to the door looks up from his game of stones and grins at the muffled footsteps passing by. Soon, the hallway fills with motion, people going to the fountain, to the bakery, to the communal latrines in the alley. You can hear buckets being lifted, sandals scraping. wooden doors scraping gently shut. The insula is starting to hum again, not with voices but with little movements. A broom brushing a floor, a jug clinking against the wall, a baby's hiccup, a cough, the click of a bolt being drawn. On the stairwell, two neighbors pass each other without speaking. They nod, just a small tilt of the head, and keep going. They've done this every day for years. Their shoulders nearly touch as they go by. The stairwell narrow and steep, worn smooth in the middle where hundreds of feet have climbed and descended. The woman from the top floor descends slowly, her basket empty, her shawl pulled tight around her shoulders. She walks with a careful step, her knees not what they used to be. As she goes, she glances into the open doors, a kind of silent greeting. A boy waves at her from one of the rooms. She smiles, lifts two fingers in return. In her room, the mother finishes tidying. The bowls are rinsed with water from the small basin and set out to dry. The ashes from the fire are swept into a clay jar to cool. She folds the blanket on the mat and brushes the dust from the corner where the wind has pushed it in through the window gap. She speaks softly to her children now, reminding them to keep inside while she's away. She won't be long. Just to the shop for grain, and then perhaps to the fountain if there's no line yet. The older one nods with a quiet seriousness beyond his years. He knows what to do. He's watched her every day of his life. He sees how she handles the coins, how she measures the lentils, how she checks the flour for pests. He's learning without being taught. She pulls on her outer wrap, a heavier cloak worn thin with use, and lifts a small basket from beside the door. With one last glance at the boys, she steps out and draws the door closed behind her. The hallway smells of smoke, damp stone, and yesterday's cooking. It's dim, with light coming in only from small cracks and open doors. She steps over a bucket someone has left beside the wall, then continues down the stairwell, hand brushing the side for balance. Below, she hears someone laughing softly, a pair of boys chasing each other out toward the alley. A door swings open and an older man calls after them, but his voice isn't angry, just tired. The kind of tired that comes with having grown up in the same building you'll likely grow old in too. Outside, the air is brighter but still not warm. The sky's pale and colorless, the kind of morning that stays soft until well past midday. The alley's already alive with quiet activity. A woman crouches near a basin, scrubbing a tunic. A man sharpens a blade against a stone. A line is beginning to form near the bakery, though the shutters are still closed. Everyone knows the rhythm. They wait without needing to be told. The woman walks with slow steps down the alley, her basket tucked beneath one arm. She nods at a neighbor crouching near the drain, nods again at the older boy sweeping crumbs into a pan. She doesn't speak. She just moves, part of the flow of the morning. She turns toward the corner where the shopkeeper's window will soon open, and leans against the wall to wait. Across from her, a man stacks small amphorae. Behind him, a child picks up pebbles and places them carefully in a row. A dog lies stretched beside a doorway, too sleepy to move. Up above, shutters open one by one. Wooden panels creak. Linen curtains flutter in the breeze. A woman leans out and tosses a scrap of bread to the birds below. They gather without hesitation. Fluttering wings, soft cooing, tiny claws tapping on stone. Then, quiet again. The shopkeeper opens his shutter with a grunt. The wooden panel swings upward and hooks in place. His face appears, still rough with sleep, but kind. The line shuffles forward. Coins change hands. Small sacks are filled. People nod thanks and step aside. No one lingers. The woman waits her turn, then approaches. She counts out 3 coins into the shopkeeper's hand. He weighs them in his palm, then fills her basket with a scoop of barley and a small pinch of salt. He wraps the salt in a bit of cloth and ties it neatly. She murmurs something, not quite a thank you, more like an old habit of sound, and walks away. She makes her way slowly back toward the insula. The building looks the same as it always has, tall and tired, its walls faded by time, its windows leaning slightly as if they're listening to the street below. She stops for a moment outside the door, looking up. A pigeon lands on the sill above her head, flutters, and stays. Inside, the stairwell smells faintly of ashes. A broom leans in the corner. A jug sits on a step, forgotten by someone halfway through their chores. She climbs slowly, passing two men arguing quietly over a broken latch. One of them nods to her as she passes. Back in the room, her sons are still where she left them. One has drawn patterns on the floor with his finger. The other is folding a bit of cloth into a shape he's imagined into something more. They look up as she enters. She smiles and sets down the basket. They don't ask questions. They just watch as she lifts the lid, scoops the grain into a clay pot, and hangs the cloth of salt on its hook. Outside, someone begins to sing. Just a line or two, soft and low. A lullaby, maybe. Or a prayer. The melody drifts through the open window and rests in the quiet of the room like a bird on a branch. Everything feels still again, though the day has already begun. The fire crackles quietly in the brazier, and the grain has been poured into a clay pot on the shelf. The mother's hands move without hurry, brushing flour dust from the table, checking the edges of a tunic left drying near the window, gently folding the cloth and placing it on a wooden peg near the door. The boys settle again on the mat, not with sleepiness, but with the kind of quiet energy that comes from knowing there's time to pass, and not much to fill it. One of them begins to hum softly, an old rhyme, perhaps half remembered. The other listens, picks up a scrap of thread from the floor, and winds it around his fingers. They don't ask what comes next. They wait, as always, for the day to unfold at its own pace. Up above, footsteps echo faintly on the wood-beamed floor. Someone moves with a limp, the same shuffle they've always made, and water is poured into a basin. A soft knock is exchanged between neighbors across the hall. Firewood is shared. A low voice asks after someone's child, then drifts away into silence. Outside the window, the street is slowly shifting into its midday form. It's not noisy, not in the upper part of the alley, but it's more awake now, more certain of itself. A fruit seller calls out in a practiced rhythm, short clipped phrases that promise sweetness and color. Her cart creaks as she nudges it forward with one foot, the wheels grinding softly over the worn stones. She's done this for years. Everyone knows her voice. Further down, a man leans over the lip of a cistern, drawing up water in a bucket made of stitched leather. It squeaks as he pulls, the rope groaning faintly on the pulley. His son stands nearby, holding two more buckets. Neither speaks. They've done this often, and the silence between them is easy. Back in the room, the mother sits down on the edge of the low stool beside the fire. She takes a dull knife from its place near the shelf and begins trimming the end of a candle that's burned unevenly. It's made of tallow, thick and sticky, and smells faintly of smoke. She doesn't mind. It will burn another hour or two, and that's enough. She glances at the boys and smiles. They're still sitting where she left them, half leaning into each other now, sharing some private joke or story in whispers. The light from the window catches in their hair, glints softly on the side of the wall, and stretches a golden stripe across the mat. The room holds onto the scent of morning grain and old wood. The air is still cool, but the brazier has taken the edge off. Somewhere down the corridor, someone is cooking lentils. You can tell by the faint, earthy smell. It mixes with the sharper tang of vinegar and the warm, almost sweet scent of steam rising from a boiling pot. People often think of the past as silent or stiff or distant, but it isn't. Not here. Here, in this insula, life breathes through the walls. The sounds are ordinary. Sandals on stone, cloth rustling, a quiet sneeze, laughter behind a door. But they stack together like bricks, forming something solid, something familiar. Even the wind is a sound people recognize, because it always whistles through the same cracked shutters, always stirs the same hanging cloths, always rattles the same latch. The woman lifts the folded tunic again and lays it across her lap, inspecting a loose seam near the collar. Her fingers are practiced. She threads a bone needle with a strand of undyed wool and begins to stitch. Each pass through the fabric is slow, steady. She doesn't need to look closely. Her hands remember the motion. The boys have gone quiet again. One lies back on the mat, tracing lines in the air with his finger. The other watches the flame in the brazier. The sound of the thread pulling through the tunic joins the quiet rhythm of the room. Outside, the sun is finally high enough to touch the tops of the buildings, Its light filters down in strips and slants, catching on shutters, warming the narrow upper windows, sliding slowly along the walls. It won't reach the bottom of the alley for hours, but you can see its glow already climbing. On the rooftop, someone has hung wet linen to dry. It flutters faintly in the breeze. A girl steps out beside it, checking the knots on the line, then shading her eyes to look across the neighboring roofs. There are herbs growing in broken pots up there. Rosemary, thyme, maybe a little mint. She pours water into one of them and watches it soak into the dry soil. Back downstairs, the hallways are momentarily still. Everyone seems to be inside now, or off at the market, or resting in the shade. The heat is slow to build today, but it presses gently at the windows, asking to be let in. Inside the room, the woman finishes the last stitch and knots the thread. She sets the tunic aside and pulls a small bag from behind the shelf. Her sewing kit wrapped in old cloth, filled with pins, thread spools, and a worn bit of chalk. She counts the pins, straightens the spools, and rewraps the cloth carefully. Even small things have their place. Her younger son asks for water. She nods, rises, and pours a little from the jug into a small clay cup. It's cool from the stone and tastes faintly of last night's air, but it's clean. He drinks slowly, handing it back with both hands. It's not yet time for the midday meal. That will come later. A bit of flatbread if they can spare the flour, maybe something from the market if she goes down again. But there's no hurry. Hunger isn't urgent here. It waits politely, a familiar guest that's learned to be patient. Outside, a merchant walks slowly through the alley, pulling a cart filled with old tools, spare pots, and bent nails. He whistles now and then, not to call attention, just to fill the space between his footsteps. A boy runs behind him, tapping the wheel with a stick. No one tells him to stop. The mother listens to the sounds, but stays where she is. She doesn't always go out again once morning's done. Sometimes she stays inside, keeps the children close, lets the heat pass overhead while they rest in the dimness. The Insula isn't grand, but it shelters them. It's familiar. Its walls may be thin, but its rhythm is strong. Across the alley, someone begins to sing again. The same voice from earlier. This time, it's a different song. A little louder, a little braver. A neighbor joins in for a moment, then stops. The song continues, winding through the corridor like smoke. The day drifts onward, unmeasured. The woman begins sorting through the basket of clothing again, setting aside the torn pieces to mend, folding what's clean, setting aside what's not. The boys whisper to each other, then quiet again. A fly buzzes lazily near the window. A draft shifts the cloth curtain beside the door. In this room, time doesn't rush. It flows slowly, like warm oil, filling the space between breath and breath, between step and stillness. The fire dims, the shadows stretch. In the Insula, the day carries on. Slowly as always. Nothing rushes. Nothing breaks the rhythm. The stone walls still hold the quiet, though it's now a different kind of quiet. Not the stillness of dawn, but the low murmur of people simply going about their lives. The mother leans back against the wall and exhales softly. She stretches her legs out in front of her, one foot crossing over the other, her toes brushing the edge of the floor mat. The boys are still nearby, playing now with little pebbles they've arranged into rows and shapes. One of them hums softly to himself as he moves the pieces around. The other watches, then carefully adds another small stone to the pattern, balancing it just so. Outside the shutter, the day is warmer. The sky, pale earlier, has deepened now to a brighter gray blue, with streaks of white where wisps of clouds drift lazily past the edges of rooftops. The air has weight to it, not heavy yet, but thick enough to slow movement. People start to walk more slowly around this hour. Sandals scuff, carts creak, shoulders sag just a little. From somewhere nearby, perhaps across the alley or 2 floors up, a woman pours water into a basin. The sound of it is soft but full, echoing off stone. Then comes the rhythm of hands, pressing wet fabric, a ring, a slap, another rinse, then silence, then again. You can hear that rhythm from across rooms, across days even. It's the same sound every time, and it always settles gently into the background. The mother's hands move again. She's reached for another bundle of cloth, a small child's tunic this time, torn at the neckline, one sleeve uneven. She doesn't sigh, doesn't frown. Just threads her needle again, bites the thread gently to flatten the end, and begins the small repair with steady hands. Stitch by stitch, pull by pull. It's warm enough now that she shifts closer to the window, letting the filtered light brighten the fabric in her lap. The curtain sways gently beside her, stirred by a quiet breeze. It brings with it a new scent, something baked. Perhaps the bakery below has opened its shutters. Maybe the flatbreads are cooling on a rack. The boys perk up. The younger one sits straighter, sniffing the air, his eyes lighting up just a little. The older one grins, nudging him with an elbow. Neither asks for food. They know better. But the scent lifts their mood. The promise of bread, even far off, is enough to soften the afternoon. The hallway outside is quiet again. People have either left or settled. Someone hums as they pass, a soft melody, tuneless but kind. The floor creaks. A door opens and closes with a slow, thoughtful sound. Time here doesn't tick like a clock, it breathes. And right now the breath is slow and low and calm. Far off, the muffled clang of a blacksmith's hammer can be heard. Not close, maybe 3 streets away. The sound is steady and soft from this distance, like someone knocking gently on a faraway door every few seconds. It repeats for a while, then pauses, then resumes, always part of the city's rhythm. In the courtyard below, a young girl is playing with a hoop. She pushes it along with a stick, guiding it carefully through the uneven stones. Her sandals slap softly as she runs, stops, nudges the hoop again. A few others watch from nearby steps, not laughing, not calling, just observing with that half-interest people reserve for familiar things. The woman above them, our mother in the Insula, doesn't look out the window yet. She's still working and the stitches must be finished before the next errand. But she hears the game below, and she hears the way the older children shift their weight, the way laughter almost starts and then doesn't, and the way the hoop wobbles and rolls and taps lightly against the wall. Her sons have now moved their little stones aside and are lying on the mat, legs stretched, arms beneath their heads. The younger one murmurs something, a question perhaps, and the other replies without looking at him. They are comfortable in this moment, even if there is little to do. They've been raised to wait, to sit still, to make stories out of scraps and ideas. The mother finishes the tunic and folds it neatly, smoothing the cloth before setting it aside. She stands and stretches again, her back curving slowly, hands reaching overhead. A quiet pop in her shoulder. Then she steps toward the shelf and lifts a small ceramic jar, checking how much flour is left. She nods slightly. Enough. She gathers the ingredients slowly. Flour, water, a bit of oil, a pinch of salt, and begins to knead the mixture in a wide, shallow bowl. Her hands press and fold, turning the dough over itself again and again. She doesn't use much pressure. The dough is soft and forgiving. The bowl rocks slightly with the motion. Her sons are watching now. The older one moves closer and crouches near the fire, adding a bit of wood to bring back the flame. The younger fans it gently with a piece of old straw matting. They know their parts. These small tasks are how they help. Once the dough is ready, the mother pinches off small rounds and pats them flat between her palms. She places them on a clay tile near the heat, turning them after a moment so both sides brown. The smell that rises is rich and warm, not quite bread, but close. Her sons breathe deeply, eyes fixed on the browning rounds. She hands them one each when they cool. They don't say anything. Just take them carefully, bow their heads a little, and eat slowly. She takes one for herself and sits again on the stool, chewing thoughtfully, watching the flame flicker lower. There isn't much talking. There rarely is in this part of the day. The light is high and slanted now, harsh in places, golden in others. Shadows form long lines across the floor. Dust floats in the air, lit from one side like tiny drifting stars. From the building next door, Someone calls out, a name maybe, or just a question. It's answered faintly. Then all is still again. In the city, moments like this pass unnoticed. But in the Insula, where rooms are small and sound moves freely, every voice matters. Every silence, too. The mother rises and rinses her hands. The boys finish their food and stretch again. The room is warmer now. They pull the curtain further closed. The fire's left to die down. She places a small jug on the windowsill. To catch the breeze, to keep the water cool. It's something her mother did. Something everyone here learns eventually. She takes the folded tunics and lays them gently into the basket. She might go out again before evening, perhaps to visit her neighbor's sister who just gave birth, or to leave a message with the shopkeeper. But not yet. There's still time. Still quiet. Across the alley, a man sharpens a tool, resting it against his thigh and pulling a smooth stone across its edge. It makes a soft, scraping sound, steady and slow. A woman nearby slices herbs into a shallow bowl. The scent drifts upward, sharp, fresh, familiar. Basil, maybe. Or something close. In one of the upper rooms, a baby begins to cry. Not sharply, just the slow buildup of a wail. A voice on her mother's follows soon after, low and even, not rushed. The crying continues for a few breaths, then fades. A lullaby follows. It is not loud. It does not need to be. In this building, everything is heard. The day tips toward its quietest hour, when most people pause. The sun is at its highest. The shadows are thinnest. And all the heat that's gathered through the morning now sits heavily in the stones, in the walls, in the air itself. The Insula rests. So does everyone in it. And in one small room, with thin walls and a fading fire, a mother sits with her children. Their voices low, their movements slow, their world contained, for now, within just a few paces of stone and wood, and still the city breathes. It does not rush or roar, not here, not in this quiet pocket between alleys. The breath is slow and steady, a low hum that moves through the Insula like warm wind through old curtains. The walls do not shake, they only settle. And the people within settle too, with them. The sun has crept higher still, though now its warmth has softened into something lazier. The sharp brightness of midday has passed, and the late afternoon arrives without a single announcement. No bell, no horn, no sudden shift. Only a stillness, a pause, a hush that seems to say, there is time still. There is no need to hurry. In the small room where the woman and her son sit, the fire has gone out. A faint ring of ash remains in the brazier, white and loose, like a fingerprint left behind by time. The woman does not relight it. There is no need for heat now. The air is warm enough, and the light from the window stretches long and golden across the wall. Her sons lie beside each other, not sleeping, but in that soft, in-between place children often find, resting eyes without quite closing them, tracing thoughts without saying them aloud. The older one scratches lightly at the floor with a twig, marking nothing in particular. The younger one watches him, then flicks a bit of lint from the mat. The mother, still seated, slowly turns a piece of cloth over in her lap. She's not mending now, just folding and refolding, hands moving out of habit. Her fingers know their work. Her thoughts are somewhere else. Maybe on the neighbor whose sister has just given birth. Maybe on the bakery 2 alleys over, where the bread has always cost a little less. Or maybe on nothing at all, just drifting like smoke from the shutter. Outside, the alley remains calm. A merchant's boy jogs past with a folded cloth bundle under one arm. He doesn't run, not here. He's learned that speed only trips you up on the uneven stones. His steps are light, careful. A cart creaks softly behind him, pulled by a tired mule, its hooves tapping in patient rhythm. On a windowsill opposite the room, a pot of herbs leans toward the sun. Its leaves droop, thirsty. Someone will remember to water it later, perhaps. Or not. The plants here are used to waiting. From the stairwell, a voice rises, not sharp, but firm. A mother calling her daughter back inside. A familiar command. The kind that doesn't need to be repeated. Footsteps follow. A shuffle of sandals on dusty wood, then quiet again. Inside the room, the woman rises slowly and steps toward the shelf. She lifts the small jug placed on the windowsill earlier. Its side is damp with condensation, and the water inside is still cool. She pours a little into each of the boys' cups. They drink without a word, then hand the cups back with both hands gently. A soft breeze flows through the narrow window. It moves across the room, lifting the edges of the hanging cloth, shifting dust across the corner of the floor. The curtain sways once, then settles. The woman begins to tidy. Not because the room is untidy, there is not much to disturb, but because that, too, is part of the rhythm. She folds the mat's edges in more neatly. She gathers the bits of thread left on the floor. She smooths the wrinkles in the tunics hanging beside the door. Small motions, no noise. One of the boys asks something, a quiet question about a neighbor's dog. She nods slowly, replying in a whisper. Her voice is not tired, only soft. It carries no weight. The kind of voice one uses when there is still sunlight in the room and nothing urgent on the horizon. From a few rooms away, laughter floats through the thin walls. It's the older boys, the ones who help carry water in exchange for figs from the vendor who never counts his coins. The laughter fades quickly, as it always does, replaced by a hush, as if even joy knows it must not linger too long in these halls. The woman steps into the hallway. The corridor is lit only by borrowed light from a half-open window at the end. She listens, not for anything specific, just to sense the mood of the building. She hears a broom against stone, a quiet snore, a rustle of cloth, then silence again. She walks 2 doors down and knocks once, not sharply, just enough. A woman opens it, her neighbor, with whom she sometimes shares salt or news, or simply the air between sentences. They exchange a few soft words. The new mother is resting. There were no complications. The child, a boy, is small but strong. The mother is tired but calm. Everything as it should be. The woman smiles gently. Her neighbor touches her hand before closing the door again. She returns to her own room. The boys have not moved far. They sit now at the edge of the mat, watching a tiny insect crawl across the wall. One of them tries to catch it with his finger, misses, then simply watches it go. The light in the room has changed again. It's lower now, coming in at an angle, tinting everything a warm bronze. The dust in the air glows. The walls, rough and marked with age, seem softer in this light. Everything appears to slow further. The woman reaches for her basket and pulls out the final bit of cloth to mend. It's not urgent, but this is the hour for such tasks. The quiet, golden hours when the city turns inward, when people stop and fold into themselves for a little while. In the distance, a bell rings, faint. From a temple, maybe. Or a shopkeeper marking the end of his trade for the day. It doesn't mean anything here. It's just another sound, a small ripple in the larger current. The room breathes again, slow, warm, still. And so, the afternoon drifts, soft and wide, like linen hanging from a high window, moving gently in the breeze, with nowhere to go and all the time to get there. The late afternoon settles like dust, gently everywhere, all at once. It doesn't arrive loudly, doesn't knock on the shutters or shift the wind. It just seeps in, golden and slow, wrapping itself around corners, floating into doorways, stretching across floors that have known thousands of days, just like this one. Inside the Insula, time has grown heavy in the most delicate way. Not burdensome, not dragging, just still. The kind of stillness that lets you notice things you wouldn't otherwise. A small crack in the wall that catches the light differently now. The faint hiss of someone pouring water upstairs. The way the curtain breathes, just slightly with every turn of air. The mother moves her hand slowly over the last of the fabric in her basket. The stitches she adds now are not needed, not really. They're more like gestures. One loop for tomorrow, one loop for quiet. One loop because the light is still good and the boys are calm and everything in the room feels balanced. Her sons lie close by, eyes half closed, their limbs relaxed in that long, stretched out way only children seem to know how to do. The younger one has a bit of thread looped around his finger, pulling it tight and letting it go, watching the blood return in a pink flush. The older one has shifted his gaze to the window, counting something. Perhaps birds on the rooftop, or how many people pass below, or how long the sun stays touching the opposite wall. The air smells faintly of cooked flour and warm clay. Not rich, not strong, just familiar. It's the smell of a room that has been used with care. A room lived in by people who know its edges and its creaks, and what time the last light will vanish from the back corner where the firewood leans. Down the hallway, someone is sweeping. The bristles of the broom make a sound like fabric rubbing against fabric. It's rhythmic, unhurried. A short pause every few strokes. The sound fades, then returns again, slower now. There's no rush. There's never a rush at this time of day. Outside, the alley holds its own rhythm. A man walks by with an empty basket slung over one shoulder, returning home with less than he'd hoped. A woman washes her hands in a basin, the water sloshing over the sides, then flicks the drops from her fingers before drying them on her apron. A boy runs past, barefoot, chasing a scrap of cloth fluttering on a stick. All of it continues quietly as though rehearsed many times before, not because it's dull, but because it's known, and what's known doesn't need fanfare. Inside the room, the mother rises. Her knees creak softly, a sound even she barely notices anymore. She stretches her arms behind her back, then rolls her shoulders slowly. Her body has worked every day for years, and now it rests in motion, familiar tasks that feel more like rituals than labor. She picks up the clay cups and rinses them with a careful swirl of water, not wasteful, just enough to clean. The rest is poured onto a small patch of packed earth outside the door, where no one walks, where nothing grows. Just a dry spot that always takes the water like a secret. The boys sit up now. They speak a few words, hushed and short. The older one asks if it's time to go down. She nods. Not yet. Soon. They understand what that means. Not measured in moments, but in feel. When the light shifts just a little more. When the neighbor finishes sweeping. When the pigeon returns to its favorite spot above the stairwell. From a nearby room, someone plays with a bit of music. Not a true instrument, just a pipe, carved from reed. The sound is soft and imperfect, but the notes are sincere. A simple pattern, played again and again. It floats along the hallway, pauses, returns. The woman wipes her hands on the edge of her tunic and opens the basket again. She counts the cloths, then refolds them. It's more habit than necessity. The basket is already in order, but the gesture of checking, of smoothing, of counting, it feels right. It gives the day its shape. Outside, the sun touches the roof lines at a lower angle now. The shadows in the alley grow longer and the cracks in the walls glow with that last bit of golden light. The world holds its breath for just a moment longer before it begins the slow sigh toward evening. The woman steps to the doorway and peers out. The corridor's empty now. The sweepers are done. The doors are mostly closed, a few left open just wide enough for air to move through. She nods gently as though receiving a signal. It's time. She turns back to her sons. They've already risen, already waiting, already knew what she would say without needing to hear it. They move without shoes, stepping lightly, their feet used to the stone and wood beneath them. The three of them step out into the hallway together. The air feels different here, cooler, touched by the breath of the building. It carries with it smells from other homes. Oil, herbs, ashes, old wood. None of it unpleasant, just real. They descend the steps slowly. The stairwell is narrow, worn in the middle, the stones polished smooth by countless feet. They pass a closed door, a sleeping dog, a small jar tucked beside a wall. All of it is familiar. All of it belongs. At the bottom, they pause in the doorway. The alley's not empty, but it's quiet. A few people sit on doorsteps. A girl plats her sister's hair. A man leans against a post, eyes closed, face turned toward the last warmth of the sun. The woman and her sons step into the light. They don't hurry. They walk with purpose, but gently. Their path is short, just down the alley and across the square. But even short paths have meaning when you walk them every day. They pass the baker's window. It's closed now, the day's trade finished. A few crumbs cling to the sill. The scent still lingers, but faint now. It will be gone by nightfall. They stop at a small stall where a woman sells olives and vinegar. She smiles when she sees them. No words at first, just nods, gestures. A few coins change hands. A small jar is wrapped in cloth and handed over. Everything done with care, with familiarity. On the way back, they pass the fountain. It trickles quietly, its water catching the orange edge of the sky. A boy sits nearby, dipping his feet into the shallow trough. He doesn't look up. He just feels the coolness and listens to the water move. Back at the Insula, the doorway is still open. They step inside again, their shoulders brushing slightly as they pass through the narrow hall. A neighbor lifts her hand in greeting. No one speaks. Words feel too loud now. In the room, the air is cooled. The curtain sways. The light is low. The woman places the jar carefully on the shelf and folds the cloth it came in. Her sons return to the mat. One lies back and sighs. The other curls onto his side. Neither says a word. And slowly the day begins to close. It doesn't shut like a door or fade like a curtain. Instead, it slips inch by inch into something quieter. The brightness dims without drawing attention to itself. The sharp edges of the afternoon dissolve into soft outlines. The walls change color again, not drastically, just enough to make shadows feel a little longer, a little softer. Inside the room, the air's cooler now. The warmth of the sun has mostly left the stone, and what remains feels dry, smooth, still. The window lets in the faint orange of the sky, casting a long glow across the mat where the two boys rest. They lie side by side, quiet now, their bodies still except for the slow, gentle rise and fall of breath. Their mother moves slowly around the space. She closes the curtain just a little, not to block the light entirely, but to soften it. She moves the brazier to the side, wipes the rim clean with a cloth, and checks the last few coals. There's no fire now, just warmth clinging to what remains. Enough to sit beside, enough to feel without needing to feed it. Outside, the alley sounds different. Softer footsteps, lower voices. The energy of the street has folded itself inward. Even the vendors have gone quiet. A man stacks baskets by a shuttered stall. A woman lowers a crate from a window to someone waiting below. They speak in murmurs, hands moving more than mouths. The mother returns to the mat and sits again on the small stool. Her hands are empty now, no cloth, no thread. She rests them in her lap, fingers curled slightly, palms warm from the earlier fire. She looks at her sons, then to the shelf, then to the wall, not watching anything in particular, just being still. The boys shift slightly. The younger one sits up, rubbing his eyes with the back of his hand. The older one turns onto his side, facing the shutter. No one says a word. It's the kind of silence that isn't heavy or awkward. It's known, trusted, shared. A gentle gust passes through the narrow window, carrying with it a scent that belongs to this hour alone. Old stone cooling, distant fires lit, herbs being crushed in kitchens. The city at twilight has a smell as real and rooted as any market or garden. It seeps into everything, familiar even when it changes day to day. From upstairs, the quiet thud of someone setting down a bundle. A floorboard groans. A child laughs once, then hushes quickly. Someone yawns behind a thin wall. The sounds don't disturb the moment. They make it whole. The building is alive, but resting. The mother rises and begins to prepare the simple evening meal. She doesn't light the brazier again. There's no need. Just a few things served cold, pieces already softened by the day. She places them on a worn clay plate. A bit of lentil mash, a few slices of salted carrot, a small heel of bread kept for morning. No feast, just enough. She places the plate in front of the boys. They sit up without being asked. Their eyes aren't hungry, but they eat carefully, quietly, savoring each bite like it has meaning. And it does. Not because of taste or fullness, but because it signals a kind of closing, a soft ritual that holds the day in place. Their mother eats last, with slow, thoughtful bites. Her eyes drift now and then to the window. now colored with a deepening blue. The last orange is gone, and what's left is a sky turning inward. Outside, someone sings, not loudly. Just a thread of a song, more breath than melody. It rises from below, from someone washing their hands in a basin or scrubbing their sandals clean before dark. The words aren't clear. The tune isn't sharp. But the feeling, that soft hum of contentment, settles in like another blanket on the room. The boys finish their food. One licks a finger. The other wipes crumbs from his lap. Their mother takes the plate and wipes it clean with the edge of her tunic. She doesn't rise immediately. Just stays sitting, still and quiet, holding the plate in her lap like it might still give warmth. Far off, the sound of a wooden gate closing. Then, somewhere closer, the creak of rope as someone hoists a small bucket from a window. Perhaps water, perhaps scraps lowered for animals. These sounds form the slow exhale of the city. Nothing urgent now, nothing sharp. The curtain lifts once more with a passing breeze. The room dims by a shade. The glow on the walls turns gray-blue. The warmth in the air cools further. And still, no one rushes. The woman rises one last time for the evening. She folds a cloth over the edge of the window to catch the night air. She rearranges the mat slightly, turning its edge toward the corner where the wall stays warmer through the night. She gestures gently to her sons, who already know what comes next. They move slowly, stretching their arms, yawning in that dramatic way children do. Not to show tiredness, but to feel the weight of their bodies. The younger one leans against his brother, pressing his head briefly into his shoulder. The older doesn't move, doesn't flinch, just lets it happen. Their mother lays another cloth across them both. Not thick, just enough to signal that day is done. She crouches briefly beside them, adjusts the edge, runs a hand once over their hair, then sits again on her stool. She will not sleep yet. Not for a while. She stays in the half-dark, listening to the walls, to the cooling clay, to the settling wood. She listens to the soft breath of her children, the rhythm of silence between footsteps, the way the air feels heavier now, almost velvet. In the alley, torches have been lit. Their glow flickers on the stone. Shadows stretch longer, sway gently. The world beyond the Insula grows quiet too. The city may still move in places, but not here. Not now. And as the room grows darker still, with only the faintest light from outside resting on the wall, she lets her eyes close. Not to sleep, not yet, but just to be still. Just to feel the night wrap itself around the bones of the building and the breath of the city slow, and the hush settle like dust on everything it touches. The day's gone now, but nothing was lost, only folded away gently into the walls. Night has not yet taken full hold. It arrives slowly, like a kind hand resting on a shoulder. Soft, quiet, patient. In the Insula, the light has thinned into a dim wash of blue and gray, the final traces of day slipping through the spaces between shutters and stone. The mother sits quietly by the wall. She hasn't moved in some time. Her sons lie on the mat, breathing softly, not quite asleep. Their limbs are loose, their faces peaceful, the small movements of dreaming not yet begun. One turns over, drawing the cloth higher. The other curls into himself with a sigh, then settles. The building around them is silent now. Not the silence of emptiness, but the kind born of many people resting together. A deep, warm hush made of worn floorboards and thick walls, of closed doors and blankets pulled to chins. The kind of quiet that doesn't just cover a place. It fills it. Outside the window, the alley is darker now. A torch burns in a sconce far down the wall, its flame rising and falling gently with the breeze. The flickering light plays across uneven stone and wooden beams, casting moving shadows that stretch and bend and disappear. Somewhere across the way, a baby makes a soft sound. Not crying, just the gentle mule of a new life adjusting to the dark. A mother responds with a slow, rhythmic hum, and soon even that sound fades, swallowed into the folds of night. The mother inside the room leans her head back against the wall. Her hair is slightly damp at the temples from the lingering heat of the day. Her hands rest in her lap, palms open, fingers soft. She listens, not for anything in particular, but because the night carries so much to hear. The quiet isn't empty. It has shape. From above, the muffled sound of a stool being moved, a faint creak in the ceiling boards, the rustle of a blanket, then nothing. A dog barks somewhere far off, perhaps near the edge of the district, beyond the street of tailors and spice sellers. The sound bounces off the walls and returns in smaller echoes. No one stirs. The city knows the difference between sounds that matter and those that don't. The mother shifts slightly, then stands. She moves slowly, bare feet brushing softly against the mat. She walks to the small jug by the window and lifts it gently. Still cool. She pours a little water into a cup and sips, then places it back down with care. Every movement is measured, quiet. There is no need for haste. Nothing is waiting to be done. She leans on the sill and looks out. The night air is cooler now, and the scent of evening fires drifts between the buildings. Smoke from olive oil lamps, from low cooking flames, from braziers tended carefully to last the night. The air carries herbs, too. Rosemary, maybe. A trace of mint. The smell of things boiled low and long. Across the alley, another woman leans from her window. She doesn't look over. She just breathes. For a long while, the two women sit in the same silence, sharing nothing but the same piece of sky. The stars are only just beginning to appear, faint points of silver against the darkening indigo. They don't fill the sky. Too much smoke, too much light, too many rooftops. But they are there, quiet and patient as they've always been. Inside, the boys are asleep now, truly asleep. One has an arm stretched across his brother's side. Their breathing is matched, slow and deep. The cloth covering them rises and falls like the tide. The mother steps away from the window. She folds the extra cloths on the shelf, smooths the mat at the edge. Her movements are practiced and nearly soundless. She knows which boards will creak. She avoids them without thought. She lowers herself beside her sons, not to lie down fully, not yet, just to be near. She watches them for a moment, eyes soft in the shadows. There is no lamp in the room tonight. The moon is enough. A soft clink from the alley, someone setting down a pot, then footsteps, then a door closing gently, a lock sliding into place. The walls of the Insula absorb it all. They have held the sounds of night for generations. Cries and prayers, laughter and whispers, silence and sleep. The stones know them all. A small breeze passes through the window again, lifting the edge of the curtain. It brushes against the mother's arm, and she closes her eyes. Not to sleep, not quite, but to rest in the coolness, to let the day settle deeper into stillness. In the far distance, a street torch hisses. The flame flutters, caught in the wind, then steadies. A moth dances near it once, then disappears. The woman lies down at last. She doesn't speak. She doesn't shift the mat. She simply closes the distance between herself and sleep. Her eyes, heavy now, blink once more, then stop. And in that small room, tucked inside a narrow alley, held within stone that has stood for generations, the world becomes smaller, softer, quieter. The city still lives. It still moves in its sleep. A whisper here, a creak there, a dream slipping out through the window of a neighbor. But for this room, for this family, for this moment, everything is enough. The night holds them gently, and nothing needs to be done. The air is still now, deeper than before. It no longer moves with the breeze or stirs with sounds from the street. Instead, it rests. It stretches out over the Insula like a long blanket, covering every corridor, every mat, every pair of tired eyes already closed to the dark. Inside the small room, the walls feel thicker, as though the quiet has seeped into them. The mother lies beside her sons. No one moves. Their breaths are slow and quiet, the kind that rise and fall not out of effort, but simply from the body remembering how to stay alive in peace. The moonlight slips through the gap in the curtain, painting a thin silver line across the floor. It climbs one stone, brushes the edge of the stool, and then fades into shadow before it can reach the far wall. That's enough. It doesn't need to shine everywhere, just enough to let the room remember where it is. Far above, at the top of the insula, a shutter creaks open slightly. Someone couldn't sleep. Perhaps an old man or a young girl who dreams too much. The window opens just enough for them to listen. Not to spy, just to hear. The creak is soft, the pause long. Then the shutter closes again. The alley is nearly silent now. Even the torches have burned lower. Only a few pools of light remain stretching across the stone like thin puddles of gold. A stray cat slips through one, its shadow joining the flame. Then both are gone. From somewhere down the street, the faint sound of sandals on stone. A city guard making his final round. His steps are even and slow. He does not hurry. He knows this street. He's walked it for years. Every corner, every door, every turn is familiar to him. He doesn't need a torch. He knows where the stones rise up slightly, where the gutter curves in just enough to trip a tired foot. He stops briefly under a window. He hears something. Not danger, just life. Maybe a cough. Maybe someone turning in sleep. He lingers for a moment, then walks on. His presence is known but distant. Comforting, not disruptive. Inside the insula, the night deepens further. Behind thin walls and woven curtains, other families sleep. A grandmother mutters in her dreams. A man snores lightly, the sound catching in his throat every few breaths. A baby shifts, makes a soft sound, then goes still again. These are not noises that break sleep. They are part of it. On the upper floors, the heat of the day still clings to the walls. Some have opened their doors to let air move more freely. A mother rocks gently on a stool, humming a tune so faint it sounds like wind. She is not awake out of worry. She is simply awake. And she knows the tune will settle her back into sleep. The mother below stirs. Her eyes open briefly, not out of fear or noise, but simply because the body sometimes remembers the night is long. She looks at the window. The line of moonlight has shifted. It now touches the wall where her eldest once hung his drawing of a dog, scratched into old wood, nearly invisible now. She smiles faintly, then closes her eyes again. In the stairwell, a drip echoes, maybe from a loose tile above or a water jar left uncovered. It falls at a steady rhythm, a tiny, regular sound in the vast quiet. It might annoy some, but here it feels like a clock, a soft reminder that time continues even when it doesn't seem to move. Elsewhere, a dream takes shape. A child turns over and speaks a word aloud, something about a goat or maybe a ship. It's impossible to tell. But the voice is clear, high, then gone again, swallowed by sleep. In another room, someone shifts in response, pulling a blanket tighter, adjusting to the weight of rest. No lamps burn now. No one cooks. No one mends. Even the animals sleep. A pigeon tucked beneath the eaves fluffs its feathers and settles again. A dog lies near a doorway, ears twitching at distant sounds but not waking. There is no threat, only the wide breath of night. The insula itself seems to sigh. The old wood beams creak, not from pressure but from rest. They stretch slowly in the cool, as if the whole building knows this is the hour for stillness. From above, the faintest note of a flute. Not a tune, not even music. Just a breath across reed. Someone cannot sleep. Or perhaps someone simply likes to feel how air moves. It is brief, then gone. A whisper through a hollow stem, then silence again. In her sleep, the mother dreams. Not vivid, not bright. Just the warm feeling of hands holding dough, of her son laughing in the morning, of water splashing on stone. Nothing sharp, nothing strange. Only pieces of the day replayed softly, like memories made of cotton and smoke. And still, the city holds. Even in its darkness, even in its sleep, it remembers itself. The streets are quiet but not dead. The rooftops breathe. The walls shelter. The rooms dream. Time does not pass quickly here. It stretches like cloth pulled across a table. Even, smooth, weightless. The night is not a space to get through. It is a place to be. And the building knows this. It has stood for years. It has seen more nights than anyone inside. It remembers each one, every footstep, every whispered prayer. Every tear, every laugh, every silence. In the mother's room, the moonlight has almost faded now. What little remains has turned pale and wide, like water spilled across the floor. The edges of things blur. The line between waking and sleeping disappears completely. Even the air rests. And still, without sound, without shift, without effort, the night continues. The insula breathes as if in sleep. Not loudly, not in a way that can be heard, but gently, deep within the stone. Everything has slowed. Even time, which so often slips quickly through fingers during the day, now drifts like fine dust in an untouched room. The mother and her sons lie in stillness. Their bodies are wrapped in quiet warmth, the thin cloths that cover them moving only when they do, which is rarely now. Their dreams are soft, simple, the kind made from days that were kind, even if hard. Dreams of water and sun, of fingers and flower, of footsteps on smooth stone. The room is dark, not pitch black, never fully, but thick with shadow. What little moonlight had passed through the curtain has faded. A gray wash remains, just enough to see the vague outlines of things, the stool by the wall, the sleeping bundle of cloth, the sliver of the doorway beyond. Everything rests. A single fly stirs somewhere overhead, its wings brushing lightly against a wooden beam. It moves once, then stops. Even the smallest creatures know this hour belongs to quiet. Outside, the alley is silent. Not a silence that feels empty, but one that feels full, like a jar with the lid sealed tight. There are no footsteps, no doors creaking, no late voices, only the steady hum of stillness pressed against the city's stones. Far above, near the roofline, a thin current of night air passes through a cracked shutter. It travels gently down the wall, brushing against clay pots, swaying a hanging cloth, before slipping unseen into the cracks of the building and vanishing. No one wakes, but the air is felt as a softness that touches without asking. In another room, a woman stirs in her sleep. Her hand reaches for something. Not out of need, but habit. It closes around the edge of a folded tunic, and she sighs, content. Somewhere nearby, a man rolls over, his back warming the mat again. A baby exhales a long breath and pulls one foot into its belly. No one speaks. No one needs to. The insula holds its people gently in its worn hands. The walls, thick with years, cradle every breath and every heartbeat. They have held hundreds before and will hold hundreds more. They remember the soft weeping of mothers, the tired laughs of fathers, the short coughs of children in the cold. The walls keep it all, but only whisper it at night. In the creak of wood, the sigh of cooling stone, the rustle of hanging cloth. In the corridor outside the room, a loose tile shifts, just once. The sound echoes faintly, then is gone. It doesn't disturb. It belongs. The insula is not trying to be quiet. It simply is. The mother breathes deeply now. She doesn't dream of much. Her rest is not filled with stories or visions. It is like sinking into a warm basin, still, soft, holding. She does not worry. The door is shut. The coals are out. The boys are safe. There is nothing to be done. Far away at the edge of the city, a low wind rises. It brushes across open rooftops and touches walls made of different stone. It moves slowly toward the insula, carrying with it the faint smell of river water and wet leaves. When it reaches the alley, it slides along the buildings and settles in the gaps between bricks, like a long-held breath finally released. The stars above the city are faint now. Their light is stretched by the smoke of evening fires and the mist that clings to the upper streets. But they are still there, steady, old, watching. Inside the room, the mat shifts just slightly. One of the boys has turned in his sleep. His hand now rests near his mother's shoulder. She does not wake, but something in her body responds. Her shoulder presses back, the slightest lean, like two leaves drifting and touching on still water. The city does not move now. It waits. Even the fountains, which earlier gurgled and splashed with life, seem to slow at this hour. The water flows softer, the stone basins echo less. It is not that they have stopped, they have simply decided to whisper instead. In the far distance, the first faint call of a bird, not loud, not meant for waking, just a soft signal that the night is not endless. But still, it holds. In a room nearby, someone dreams of wheat, golden fields, not real perhaps, but real enough. They turn toward the wall, their face pressing into the cloth as if into sunlight. Another dreamer sees waves, another sees a quiet table, a warm loaf, a silent room. The dreams are not grand. They are not tales of glory or war. They are dreams born of long days, of warmth, of family, the kind that do not shake you awake, but rock you deeper into the fold of sleep. The mother does not move again. Her face is calm, lips slightly parted, brow smooth. The lines of the day have melted. What remains is the shape of someone at peace, not because life is easy, but because this moment is. The Insula breathes with her. The mat beneath her is old, worn from years of use, the stone beneath it even older. Yet tonight, in this hour, everything feels new, or at least renewed, as if rest has given it all a soft polish, a layer of meaning too quiet to speak, and in this stillness, this quiet sea of breath and stone and time, nothing more is asked of the world. The night remains, and that is enough. No new sound enters the room. No shape changes. No light returns. The air lies motionless, not heavy, but still, like cloth folded and resting on a stone floor. Even the softest breath echoes faintly in the hush. These are the deepest hours, when the city sleeps without stirring, and even the stars seem to forget they are shining. The Insula holds its people close, like a cloak wrapped gently around the shoulders of all within. It breathes in time with them. It sleeps too. The mother has not moved for some time. Her body, warm and quiet, remains curled on her side. The slow rhythm of her breath lifts the cloth gently, a rise and fall so subtle it seems part of the air itself. Her sons lie close, each turned inward now, small islands of sleep adrift on a shared mat. Their feet touch, their hair brushes, but their dreams are their own. From the stairwell, the faintest creak, a board shifting with the cold, no footsteps follow, no doors open, just the sound of a building adjusting, like a sleeper turning beneath a blanket, the kind of sound that barely exists. Across the narrow alley, the last torch has gone out, its wick burned down to ash, its holder blackened by flame. In the darkness, the stone glows faintly, not from light, but from memory. It still remembers the day, the warmth, the colors. The alley is shadowed now, but not empty. A breath of air slips between two shutters, cool and damp. It drifts through the corridor and into the room, brushing the skin of a sleeping boy's arm. He does not stir. The breeze carries with it the faintest hint of smoke, of damp wood, of the river. Inside, the walls do not speak, but they hold stories. A small crack above the shelf tells of winter storms, of hands pressed to stone, of repairs done in spring. A darkened spot on the floor remembers spilled oil, wiped clean with cloth and warm water. Each mark belongs to something. Each silence is a shape, and in this hour, those shapes float quietly, as if hovering just beneath waking. The city does not know this moment. It does not name it. It is too still, too slow. But it happens each night. This moment where the darkness seems endless, where the world feels paused. Not broken, just waiting. In the room above, someone coughs lightly in sleep. It echoes once, then fades. A hand moves over a blanket. A breath deepens. Nothing more. A basket near the stool has shifted slightly. Its weave leans now against the wall, casting a curved shadow along the stone. It holds dry cloth, 2 wooden spoons, and a single cracked dish. These are not treasures, but they are known. And in the dark, they seem to rest too. The mother stirs, only a little. Her hand flexes and relaxes. Her mouth parts slightly. No words come, but a breath slips out. the kind made not in speech, but in peace. Beneath her, the mat is warm where she lies. But near the edges, the cool has returned. The stone has drawn the day's heat back into itself. It will wait, as it always does, for the sun to come again. And yet, nothing here is cold. The air may be chilled, the floor may hold the night, but inside this room, warmth lives in bodies, in breath, in nearness. Far away beyond the alley, beyond the other buildings and rooftops, the sky begins, very quietly, to change. Not enough for light, not enough to see. But the black of night softens just slightly, like ink diluted by water. Inside, no one notices. The world within these walls is still turned entirely towards sleep. One of the boys whispers something, a sound more than a word. Perhaps he dreams of a familiar walk, of his brother beside him, of their mother's voice calling them home. Whatever the dream, it is kind. His brow is smooth, his fingers twitch once, then still again. The curtain at the window does not move now. It hangs heavy with the cool of night, brushing lightly against the wall. Its hem has a small tear, barely visible, made by a nail long removed. No one has repaired it, but it stays folded just right, hanging in its usual way. In the lower corridor, a clay pot settles. Perhaps the air shifted it, or perhaps the building did. It makes no sound now. It simply rests, like everything else. A spider lowers itself slowly from the ceiling's edge. Its thin legs move without sound, without thought. It touches the stool, pauses, and then begins to climb again. It, too, is part of the insula. Everything is part of the insula, and the insula keeps watch. It does not forget the ones who lie within it. It has heard their voices in waking. It has felt the press of their backs, their hands, their footsteps. Now it listens to their silence. It folds them into itself, not to keep them hidden, but to keep them safe. A deeper quiet settles, the kind that happens only once in a night, when the city and its people fall entirely still together. No dreams rise, no wind stirs, no distant sound passes over stone. Even the stars, if they could be heard, have stopped speaking. And yet, even here, the moment does not last forever. Somewhere far beyond, the edge of the world begins to turn. But inside this room, no one rushes, no one knows. There's only stillness, only breath, only walls that remember. The mother sighs in her sleep, and still the night holds. But now, beneath that stillness, there's the faintest suggestion of change. Not movement, not sound, just the smallest shift. As if the night, while still resting, has begun to open one eye. A softness in the dark, a thinning at the edges. Inside the insula, the hush remains unbroken. The mother does not stir. Her sons remain tucked beneath their shared cloth. The air in the room has cooled further, pressing gently against skin, like the edge of water before the morning sun reaches it. The shadows stretch a little longer now, reaching further across the stone floor, folding into the corners as if preparing to withdraw. Somewhere on the rooftop, a bird shifts on its perch. Not a cry, not a song, just the rustle of feathers and the quiet settling of small feet against the tile. It knows something. Not much, just that the night has started to end. In the alley outside, a faint mist has begun to gather. It creeps up from the streets, hugging low to the ground, wrapping itself around crates and steps and scattered straw. It carries with it the scent of cold clay and the faint salt of morning damp. It does not rush, it does not lift, it waits. The window curtain does not move, but its color, even in the dark, is no longer the deep gray of midnight. It has become something lighter, not white, not yet, but touched by a softness, the first touch of what will be light. In the room, the air feels different, not in warmth, but in weight, as if something old has been lifted. The long night no longer holds quite so tightly. It still wraps the insula gently, but now with one hand instead of two. The building knows this moment. It has felt it many times. This thin edge of change, between holding and releasing, between keeping and letting go. It does not rush the shift. It lets it happen quietly, as it always has. A pot near the door contracts slightly with the cold. Its clay gives off a single faint click, like the tiniest knock. No one hears it, but the sound moves through the room like a ripple through water, barely there, then gone. The mother exhales, not in response, just part of sleep. She does not yet know that the night is fading. Her body remains deep in rest, her thoughts somewhere warm and simple. A remembered walk, a bowl of water, a cloth folded at the edge of a table. There's no urgency in her breath, only peace. The boys lie still. One has curled tighter. The other has stretched slightly. Their sleep is deep but changing. The long hours of night are shifting behind them. Soon, not now but soon, the stirring will begin. Far above, the sky begins to pale. The stars are still present, but they dim with each breath. The moon lowers slowly, slipping toward rooftops like a hand withdrawing from water. It leaves no mark, only space. The rooftops themselves are still. No steps, no sweeping, no voices, just tiles cooling, just beams relaxing after holding warmth for hours. A single fig leaf clings to a branch near the chimney. It moves once in the breeze, then stillness again. In the stairwell, a soft sigh, a board flexing with the weight of the air. The building eases into itself. It does not yawn, does not stretch, but it begins to soften its hold on the sleeping city. The alley remains empty, the mist curls and leans. It listens. Across the way, behind closed shutters, a woman stirs. Her hand reaches for a jug beside her bed. She does not lift it, only touches it. Then, finding the surface cool, she lowers her hand again and turns to her side. Her dreams begin to slip away. In the kitchen room of another family, a mouse darts silently along a beam, nose twitching. It pauses, sensing the hour. The world is changing. It slips back into the gap behind the wall. On a shelf below, the bread left from the day before rests under cloth. Its crust is firm, its scent faint but still present. A whisper of grain and fire. It waits to be warmed. Still, no one moves. Still, the air holds. But the night is not what it was. Not quite. Its silence has changed. What was once thick has begun to grow thin. What was once still has begun to soften. The silence remains, but it no longer presses. It floats now. The Insula knows this moment. The moment before birds sing. The moment before fires are lit. The moment when the world breathes in deeply before it remembers it must wake. One of the boys shifts. His legs stretch, long and loose. He does not wake. His mouth moves silently, some words still trapped in a dream. Then stillness returns. The curtain at the window catches a breath of wind. It lifts slightly, then falls. The breeze carries with it the scent of morning, ash, mist, cold stone, and somewhere far off, the faintest trace of fresh dung from a cart passing 3 streets away. Life is moving again, even if no one sees it yet. The mother rolls slightly toward the window. Her brow furrows gently, not from worry, but from the pull of sleep beginning to lift. She does not open her eyes. Not yet. In the room above, a foot touches the floor. The first. It pauses, testing the cool. The rest of the body stays in bed. But the foot knows. It is nearly time. Back on the mat, one boy's fingers curl and uncurl. He dreams now of light. Not bright light, not sun, just the kind that glows on the edge of a wall, that makes dust float in the air. That means the day is near. The Insula holds its breath, and slowly, gently, quietly, the darkness begins to loosen. Inside the Insula, nothing rushes. The change is not loud. It does not come all at once. Instead, it spreads like warm water, poured across cool stone, filling cracks, reaching corners, pressing against the edges of sleep without breaking it. The room where the mother and her sons lie still holds to the quiet. But there is something different now. A tension has lifted. The air is thinner. The silence is lighter. The kind of silence that waits to be replaced. One of the boys moves first. His breath catches, then evens again. His eyes remain closed, but his legs stretch longer beneath the cloth. His feet press gently against the mat, testing the space around him. Then he folds inward once more. Not ready yet, but no longer fully sleeping. The mother's hand shifts beside her. She moves her fingers softly across the mat, as if looking for something familiar. The edge of cloth, the warm hand of a child, the rough weave of the floor beneath. Her face remains still. Her thoughts float just below the surface. A door creaks open on a higher floor. Slowly, carefully, a man steps into the hallway, bare feet against the stone, heel first, then toes. He moves with the quiet practiced by someone who has done this every morning, not to avoid waking others, but because he understands how still the building is at this hour. He carries a small lamp, unlit. In the darkness, his other hand touches the wall for balance. He makes no sound beyond the soft brush of his feet and the tiny shuffle of cloth at his ankles. In another room, a woman sits up. Not quickly. She rubs her eyes with the backs of her fingers, then smooths the creases from the blanket folded across her lap. The baby beside her sleeps on. She leans to check the child's breath, watching for the rise and fall, then nods faintly. Still time. She does not speak. She simply watches the pale light stretch across the far wall. Outside, the alley is beginning to change. The mist that curled through the stones has thinned. Its edge pulls back like cloth being folded away. In its place, the faintest golden sheen begins to creep along the walls. Not sunlight, not yet, but the whisper of it. From far down the lane, the groan of a cart's wheel. It turns slowly, dragging against the rutted stones. No shouting, no orders, just movement. A figure walks beside it, head bowed, hands tucked into a worn tunic. Perhaps a baker. Perhaps someone returning from a long walk. They do not look up. The city is still asleep, even if they are not. Inside the Insula, a woman fills a jar with water. The sound is nearly silent. A soft splash, a slow pour. She sets the vessel down with care, then lays out a cloth to dry her hands. Her eyes move to the window. Nothing out there yet, but she watches just the same. On the lowest floor, someone stirs coals from the night before, a faint scrape of metal against clay. Then a sigh. The fire's not lit yet, but the hands are ready. They've done this too many mornings to count. The mother blinks now. Just once. Her eyes do not open fully, but they open. The room is quiet. Her body knows the hour. She listens. Not for anything in particular. Just to feel the room again. Her fingers find her son's arm and rest there. He doesn't wake, but he breathes differently now. Slower, deeper, the kind of breath that prepares to stop dreaming. The curtain near the window moves, not from wind. There is none now, but from the light. The kind of movement that happens when the world itself begins to change. In the upper room, the old man who creaked the door steps back inside. He's filled a small jug with water and placed it on a shelf. He sits on the stool near his bed, resting his elbows on his knees. He does not speak. He does not move again. He simply waits, eyes half closed, face turned toward the first light of day. A dog barks somewhere in the distance, just once. The sound echoes lightly between the buildings, then disappears. It doesn't wake anyone. It doesn't need to. The Insula begins to warm, not in heat, not yet, but in presence, in awareness. The silence isn't ending, it's changing. From sleep to stillness, from stillness to readiness. The kind of quiet that isn't empty, but full of what comes next. The boy beside the mother turns onto his back. His eyes open halfway. He sees only the dim ceiling, the line where wall meets beam. He doesn't speak. He closes his eyes again. But now, his breath is different. His body knows the day is near. The mother sits up, slowly. She wraps the cloth tighter around her shoulders and places her hand on her lap. Her hair falls over one eye. She doesn't fix it. She closes her eyes again and leans her back against the wall. She doesn't move toward the fire. She doesn't call her sons. Not yet. There is no rush. In the Insula, others do the same. Some stir water. Some press palms into aching backs. Some roll mats slowly and lay them aside. Some sit in thought. Some do nothing at all. But all know the night is ending. The sky above is still pale. No sun, no gold, no red. But the black has gone. The stars are lost. The city exhales. And in the alley below, a rooster calls once, long, low, steady. Then the silence returns. And within the Insulas, in its rooms, along its steps, against its walls, people begin to move, quietly, softly, together. The building begins to move, not all at once, but like a hillside waking beneath a slow sunrise. A foot here, a hand there, the creak of a stool, the shift of weight from one side of a mat to the other. No one speaks loudly. No one hurries. This is not the sharp waking of a city at war, or a marketplace erupting with bells. This is the calm unfolding of another Roman morning, in a place that knows how to rise without noise. The mother presses her palms to her knees. She looks around the small room. Her eyes settle first on her sons, still curled like sleeping birds. She doesn't wake them. Not yet. Instead, she reaches for the clay jug near the stool. The water inside is cool. She pours a little into a shallow basin and presses her fingers into it, then gently to her face. In the quiet, the splash is soft and round, a sound that belongs here. On the floor, the mat bears the deep impressions of the night, the weight of 3 bodies, the shape of rest. She lifts one corner, slowly folds it over, then pauses. Her son beside her shifts slightly and pulls the blanket closer. She lets it be. There is still time. From a window above, golden light finally touches stone. It moves down the insula like a silent stream, brushing lintels, warming old shutters, slipping between gaps in walls. It lands briefly on a hanging cloth, lighting the woven patterns there, not rich or royal, but familiar. Threads of olive green and ochre brown, a faded pattern of leaves repeating. A hand-tied knot near the bottom. Sunlight traces it all and then continues downward. In another home within the insula, a boy helps his father shake out a mat. They hold it by its corners and lift it gently, letting dust settle quietly to the floor. No one speaks. The dust floats through the beam of morning light like fine flour, drifting, spinning, disappearing into the air. A woman in her 30s tends a clay stove. She places wood with care, not force. She lights it from the embers, saved beneath an old tile, breathes gently into the base, and watches the first flame take shape. The orange glow grows slowly, licking upward. The room grows warmer by 1 small degree. She hums softly an old tune with no words. Back in the mother's room, her younger son stretches, eyes half open. He turns onto his back, scratches the side of his foot, and yawns. A small sound escapes his throat. Not speech, just the sound of rejoining the day. She smiles and hands him the cloth she's warmed in her hands. He wipes his face and blinks at the light near the window. Still too early for words. He pulls his knees to his chest and lies there for another moment, eyes open, not moving. On the stairway, footsteps descend. A man carrying a basket of olives walks quietly, placing each foot carefully. The olives were soaked overnight in a mixture of water and salt. His wife will season them with herbs before midday. He nods as he passes a neighbor, but does not speak, just a small tilt of the head. The kind that says, "We are both awake. We are both alive." A girl of about 8 carries a shallow tray with 2 small loaves of yesterday's bread. She places them near the window so the sun can warm them. A smear of honey waits in a bowl beside them. She stares out through the wooden lattice for a moment, watching birds hop across the neighbor's rooftop. She does not move until her father's voice gently calls her from the back of the room. In one of the corner rooms, a grandmother sits on a wide cushion with a bundle of herbs in her lap. She begins to tie them with string, rosemary, bay, and mint. She stores these for boiling later, to help clear the air in the shared room where many sleep. She works with practiced fingers, her head bowed, her breath steady. The insula smells now of smoke, of bread, beginning to warm, of bodies beginning to move. The thick scents of the night, wool, sweat, dust, are slowly replaced with clearer ones. A bowl of vinegar water is placed near a doorway. Another is set beneath a stool to trap any ants that might wander in. The older son in the mother's room sits up slowly. He yawns wide and rubs his shoulder. The mother reaches out and presses his shoulder briefly, a touch of warmth and reassurance. He leans against her side for a moment, then rises to roll the mat. A thin comb is taken from a basket. The younger boy holds still while his mother gently draws it through his hair. He leans into her hand. She presses her palm briefly to his cheek before setting the comb aside. From the street below, the sound of a wheelbarrow turning its corner. Its wooden frame creaks softly, the wheels pressing into the stones. It leaves behind faint marks in the damp morning dust. Two neighbors step into the corridor. One carries a broom, the other a tin cup. They nod to each other, stand beside the window, and watch the light fall across the alley. The broom begins its soft work, sweeping gently, not in haste. Inside, the mother kneels near the hearth. A small pan waits for her. She begins to stir a paste of grain and water, left to soak overnight. A bit of oil, a dash of salt. She hums as she stirs. Her sons sit nearby, legs crossed, watching the bowl. There is no need for hurry. The day will come on its own. The city outside begins to speak in faint, slow syllables. A rooster far off. A child's voice repeating a word. A merchant untying the cloth around his wares. The echo of a dog's nails against stone. All quiet, all soft. The Insula receives the day as it has always done. Slowly, evenly, gently. Not with shouts, not with drums, but with touch, with hands warming cloth, with feet crossing cool floors, with soft glances and shared space. The mother tears bread into 3 pieces and places them on a plate. She adds a smear of honey and hands one to each of her sons. They eat in silence, watching the light move along the opposite wall. The bread is chewy. The honey is sharp and golden. The room has color now. Warm orange against clay, soft brown where shadows gather, lines of golden light tracing across the shelf and down the corner of the mat. And all across the Insula, in every small room, under every low roof, and behind every thin wall,